for all the blessings we've already received this morning. We thank you, Lord, for all the things you do for us every day. But, Lord, please be with each one of these needs this morning. You know the circumstances. You know the situations. We just ask for your healing touch and your comforting touch. Be with each family, each person on this list, I pray, Lord. Go with us throughout this day that we receive from you and we be filled in a way that we can go out and help others. We love you and thank you and appreciate all you do for us. We pray this in your name. Amen. You may be seated. You may be seated. A few announcements. November 29th, it says Youth Christmas Shopping. November the 30th is a Section 4 Youth Banquet. And December 3rd, which is next Sunday, will be a youth lunch fundraiser and a kids' youth fun night. So keep those announcements in mind for the upcoming week, if you will. Also, new Sunday school books. We're finishing one today, and we'll have new Sunday school text starting next Sunday, and those are available out in the foyer in the Welcome Center if you'll pick one up on your way out. And for whoever's studying next week, if you'll teaching next week, if you'll study it, that'll be a help to them. So pick up a Sunday school book if you will. Today's lesson, we'll conclude with this series of lessons of Jesus responds to faith. Jesus responds to faith. From Cana to Capernaum is the lesson. This is lesson 3.4. And last week, Corey taught a really good lesson based on the first part of John 4. And at the end of that account, the woman at the well, the Samaritans asked Jesus to stay over. And he did for 2 days. And they sort of, if you'll interpret a little of what it said in there about their belief, it appears that they had somewhat of a revival based on what the woman told and what the people that she told, what they believed. So for 2 days, Jesus stayed with them. And after that, we're going to pick up in the latter part of chapter 4 of John. And just to remind you and set the stage, the first miracle that Jesus performed was when he turned the water into wine at Cana, at the wedding. We all know that. Today we're studying the second miracle. This is the second miracle that he did. So let's read together John, the 4th chapter, John 4 and verse 43. Now after 2 days he departed thence and went into Galilee. For Jesus himself testified that a prophet hath no honor in his own country. Then when he was come into Galilee, the Galileans received him, having seen all the things that he did at Jerusalem at the feast, for they also went unto the feast. So Jesus came again into Cana of Galilee, where he made the water wine, and there was a certain nobleman whose son was sick at Capernaum. When he had heard that Jesus was come out of Judea into Galilee, he went unto him and besought him that he would come down and heal his son, for he was at the point of death. Then said Jesus unto him, Except ye see signs and wonders, ye will not believe. The nobleman saith unto him, Sir, come down here ere my child die. Jesus said unto him, Go thy way, thy son liveth. And the man believed the word that Jesus had spoken to him, and went his way. And as he was now going down, his servants met him and told him, saying, Thy son liveth. Then inquired he of them the hour when he began to amend. And they said unto him, Yesterday at the 7th hour the fever left him. So the father knew that it was at the same hour in which Jesus said unto him, Thy son liveth, and himself believed, in his whole house. This is again the second miracle that Jesus did when he was come out of Judea into Galilee. Remember now, the whole thing we're studying this morning is Jesus responding to faith. Jesus is responding to faith. We all know what faith is. We know what it is to believe, I think. But this is a reminder of what type faith, I think. I tried to think of what this story goes back to when we were little people in Sunday school. We all remember this story. So what's new about it? There's not anything new about it. But to remind us of what type faith God wants us to have. Are we going to have faith that's based only in signs and wonders? Or are we going to have an abiding, deep faith? And those of you who know me very long know that my faith and my walk with the Lord is way more practical than some folks'. I believe in everyday faith. I believe in an everyday walk. And I don't know about you, but every day in my life's not on the mountaintop. I wish it was. Because it's fun up there. Everything's good. There's nothing wrong. There's no conflict. There's no sickness. There's nothing wrong. But that's not the way it works, folks. For there to be mountaintops, there's got to be valleys. And for us to have an abiding faith, we've got to have the same faith in the valley that we do on the mountaintop. It's easy to have faith in an all-powerful, all-knowing God when everything's great. The bank account's not overdrawn. The pantry's full. Car's running and got gas in it. Nobody's sick. It's easy to say, oh, God is blessing. Everything's wonderful. What about the converse of that? When the bank account's empty and there's not real assurance of where the groceries are coming from tomorrow, and there's a sickness that cannot be overcome. The same God is the same God. And our faith has to be the same in each situation. That's what we're going to talk about today, I hope, if God allows and He directs what we do. But verse 43, we'll just walk through these this morning. Verse 43, He went into Galilee. If I've studied and read correctly, this is the only incident or item of ministry that John records Jesus doing in Galilee. This is the only recordation of that. In verse 44, Jesus is talking about how He was not received and how we'll read it. He testified that a prophet had no honor in his own country. Then when He was coming to Galilee, the Galileans received Him, having seen all things that He did at Jerusalem at the feast, for they also went unto the feast. This reference to His own country had to be to Judea, and later on it would also apply to Nazareth, I think. But no honor, if you'll study that in the context that no honor truly means amongst the people of authority. And if you'll allow me to say, the church people. That's where Jesus was not honored. That was where He was not accepted. That was where He was not received. The common people, the sinners, if you will, they received Jesus. They respected Him and they honored Him. Just a little side note today. You're here today, so that makes you church people. I set you up and led you right up into that wall. You're church people. Are you accepting Jesus? Are you honoring Him? Are you respecting Him? Are you allowing the people out there that maybe aren't following Him, but they have a greater respect for Him? That's something we need to be careful of, and I mean that. Sometimes we become so close. You know, you can get so close to fire you don't feel the heat. Now, metaphorically speaking, you get close enough to fire, you're going to get burned. I'm not completely crazy this morning. But you stay close enough to a fire, you don't feel any cold anymore. You just feel the heat and you take it for granted. See where I'm going? We, because of our longevity in God, because of our blessing of being maybe raised on a church pew, but whatever, we've been around God long enough, are we comfortable with Him enough that we don't respect Him and honor Him in the way we should? You know, one of the simplest, most sincere ways to honor our all-powerful God is to believe Him. It's to believe everything He says and believe everything He said and act on it. I can tell you what a good friend you are to me. You're just my best friend, and I love you, and I appreciate you, and I know you'd do anything for me. But if I don't honor and respect you as such, then you're really not my friend. You're an acquaintance. Jesus, we're told back in chapter 1 where Jesus was saying He was without honor, and we know that was true. But he sort of came to His own at Jerusalem and in Judea. And those of the Jewish religion didn't accept Him. They didn't believe what they were seeing. They didn't believe what they was hearing. They didn't want to see these signs and wonders, because if you want to be real plain about it, it was messing up their play party. They had a good thing going, power-wise and financial-wise and prestige-wise, and this was tearing it asunder. This was turning it upside down. It wasn't going to be them in control anymore. His own people did not receive Him. But Jesus' ministry, as we can study and know, had been very successful among the common people. It was just the authorities that wouldn't accept Him and wouldn't honor Him. But to get to the lesson, verse 46. I guess the point I was trying to make, and I'm not sure I closed the loop. We're supposed to be God's people. If we've been filled with His Spirit, we're His children. Are we honoring Him as such? Are we respecting Him as such? Are we allowing that privilege of being honorable and respectful go to someone else? Folks, don't take for granted what God's done for you. Don't take for granted what God is doing for us, and don't take for granted what He's prepared to do for us. We need to be honoring and respecting this great God, not taking Him for granted. You know, you get up and go to the sink and turn the water on, and water comes out. I hate to be rude, but you flush the toilet and it flushes. You turn on the shower and it comes on, till it don't. And then what happens? Oh, it's pandemonium. It may be out for an hour, but we ain't got any water. We have become so used to standing under the spigot of blessings coming out of heaven that sometimes I think we forget where those blessings are coming from. Now, I know this is a lesson about faith, but you need to believe that God is the Almighty and God's the supplier of those blessings. Not Central Water, I get that. God is a good God that we don't need to let someone else honor and respect. And we do that by our walk of faith and showing them how much we believe in what He can and will do. Verse 46, but a certain nobleman whose son was sick at Capernaum. This certain nobleman believed in Jesus' blessings. He believed in Jesus' capabilities. He believed that He could heal. If you'll translate nobleman, it says basilakos, and it's a royal figure or one in royal service. And if you'll read some transcripts and manuscripts, he was thought to be a court official, probably serving under Herod Antipas. And if you'll study him, you'll know this man was taking quite some risk coming to ask Jesus for help. It's kind of like Nicodemus coming at night asking Jesus. This guy was part of the official crowd. And here he's asking Jesus to take care of his son. But it's really not the issue with this guy today of which side he was on. The common people, the authorities, whether he respected Jesus or not. He did. His actions showed how much he respected Jesus. I'm just trying to remind you that he was not one of Jesus' inner circle. He was not one of the disciples. He was not one of the, if you'll allow me to say that, camp followers. He was a court official. He was a nobleman. He was somebody important. But more than that, he was a father from 20 or 25 miles away that had a sick boy that was dying, and he needed help. He came in his urgency to seek help for that son. Do you have anything urgent this morning? Don't raise your hand. If you do want to say so, that's fine. But do you have anything urgent in your spirit this morning? Do you have something in your family? Do you have something in your soul? Do you have something that you need Jesus today? I'm going to make a real bold and broad proclamation. Ask Him for it. Ask Him for it. I promise you there's been things I've asked Jesus for in my life, and I told you not too awful long ago, as a young man, my faith was, I don't know if it was simpler. Maybe it was stronger. But as a young man, I believed that if you prayed for rain, you need to tuck an umbrella under your arm because it's going to rain. I come to understand that some things you prayed for was not in God's will to take care of. He had a different thought or a different idea, and I have to be subjective, my will to His. I can't, it's not like going and, this is like, go in the Sears Roebuck catalog. Now it'd be like going to Amazon, wouldn't it? I had to get in the real world there. Used to, you thumb through the Sears Roebuck catalog. Now you Google it. God's not like that. We don't just say, God, fix this, God, fix that, God, I need this. He already knows what all we need. But if you have an urgency today, God will answer you about that. And I hate to sound a little crawfishing here. He may say yes, he may say no, and he may say not yet. But God hears you. God hears you from an honest, sincere heart spoken in faith. God hears your request. God knows your need. Do you still believe that Jesus responds to true faith today? Do you? I do. I believe He's my Father in heaven. That's not words. That's not just a prayer lesson of our Father which art in heaven. That's not just words to me. We're His children. If we've been indwelled with if His Spirit is indwelling in us, we are His children. We're part of the family of God. I don't think there's anything that I could do that my children or grandchildren, and Lord, that's getting to be a mess. Those grandchildren ask for things that they know they've got you. What did I read yesterday? Grandparents are so simple, even children can control them. Yep. I don't think there's anything our girls or our grandgirls would ask if I thought it was good for them and not harmful, or I wouldn't get in trouble with their mamas, that I wouldn't do. Because they ask. Not because maybe they deserved it, maybe most definitely not because they needed it, but because they asked. And I'm a man, if you didn't know that. I'm a human being with very limited capabilities of what I can and can't do, financially, powerfully, and otherwise. We serve an all-powerful, all-knowing, all-able God to answer anything we ask of Him, and He's our daddy. So why do we sit in need, be it whatever the need is? I just put it as a blanket. Whatever the need is, why do we sit and not ask? Why do we sit and struggle and not ask? God's not going to heal everybody. You understand that? Let's be realistic about this. If God healed everybody, we'd have a real population problem because there'd be a lot of folks still here. Because there's a lot of folks been prayed for to be healed that's going on. I prayed fervently for Daddy to walk. You know, in the last while of Daddy's life, he lost mobility of his legs. He didn't lose mobility of his mind and what he wanted to do and what he wanted you to do. But he lost his, did he, Mom? I discovered early on when Daddy got to where he couldn't really maneuver, he had a side-by-side outside, he had a scooter inside, and he was mobile. It just wasn't on his legs. He called me one morning at work and said, reckon you could, and I couldn't tell you what it was. It was something he needed legs for, he couldn't do. Reckon you could do for me? I said, yes, sir, I'll take care of it. I plugged it in my brain on the way home, go by and do this for Daddy. I found out later, I used to go to lunch at 11:30. I found out later he sat on the porch from 10:30 to 1 o'clock waiting on me to come by at lunch because he had asked me to come, and I didn't know I was supposed to do it right then. My point I'm coming back to, I prayed hard for Daddy to get his mobility back. I prayed fervently in faith that he could walk again. He didn't. It was not God's will that he walk again. And I still haven't learned all the lessons from that, but I've learned some. I've learned some about perseverance. I've learned some that I didn't need a whole lot of help with, but determination. I've learned that you don't give up. There's always a way to do something if you got a mind to do it. God will honor your efforts and bless them. It may not be on your legs. Mom, I didn't say all that to make you feel bad. But it may not be on your legs, but God still answers prayer. Maybe not in the way I saw it, maybe not in the way I wanted it, but in the way it was needed. So I'm telling you, I don't have a blind Pollyanna, everything's great faith, it's all going, I just say it and it happens. Oh, I got more sense than that. But if I ask God about it and then give it to Him, then it is taken care of. Does that make sense? I'm thankful God still responds to true faith. Verse 47, this child was sick. When this nobleman, when he heard that Jesus was come out of Judea into Galilee, he went unto him and besought him that he would come down and heal his son, for he was at the point of death. This child was at the point of death, and he didn't need Jesus next week. He needed him right now. This nobleman needed him to come home with him back to Capernaum and heal this child. Not if, not maybe, but yes, he needed help. He believed that Jesus would just go back to Capernaum with him. Everything would be fine. There have been times in my life, and there will be more times in my life, when I just knew and I just know that if Jesus would just show up, everything would be fine. No matter what the situation, no matter how much turmoil in my mind, no how much upheaval in my soul, no matter what the situation, if Jesus would just show up, it's going to be fine. That nobleman thought if Jesus just go home with him, his son would be fine. He'd be healed. At first glance, verse 48 sort of looks like Jesus might have been a little harsh with this man. Jesus said unto him, except ye see signs and wonders, you'll not believe. So what my way of looking at it, and after a good bit of studying this week, Jesus wasn't being harsh. He was kind of testing the man's faith. This man, he just came in faith wanting his son healed. He didn't do anything wrong. But Jesus said, you won't even believe if you don't see signs and wonders. Well, that's the crux of what I think this lesson is about today. How do we believe? Do we believe because of a sign and a wonder and a miracle? Or do we believe because it's God, no matter what? I've already shared some pretty personal this morning. I didn't quit believing because Daddy didn't walk. I couldn't quit believing in Jesus because Dad didn't walk. I wanted it to happen. I felt like it could happen. But I didn't believe because of the sign and the wonder. I believed because God was God. God knows better than I do about things. Oh, we all think we're so smart. Yeah, don't sit there so smug looking. You think the same thing too. You look in the mirror and you think, I got this all figured out. Well, I hate to burst your bubble. You don't. We think we do. But as I told somebody Friday at our house, someone was there, and they got a text. And I saw the look on the face as they were reading the text. Their whole day had turned upside down. One text. Took about 20 seconds to read it. The whole day turned different. I don't care how well you think you got it figured out and how good a control you got on it. You better have faith in somebody bigger and smarter than you. I truly believe Jesus wanted to just see. Oh Lord, I'm glad he turned these forever because I got a lot of questions I want to ask when I get there. I feel sure I'll forget all those questions. It won't matter anymore. But I do have a lot of questions. Jesus, was you really fussing at this fellow? Was you fussing at that daddy? Or was you just testing his faith? We just wanted to see what he was asking was real. Don't condemn me for saying that I don't believe in signs and wonders and miracles. I do. I know there are things that have happened in my life that wouldn't have happened if God hadn't intervened. I know there are things he's taken care of, some that I didn't even know about. But there's some that we prayed about, and God showed up and took care of it, and there was no other possible explanation. Medicine didn't do it. Logic didn't do it. Finances didn't do it. God did it. I know that. So don't condemn me and say, well, you don't believe in signs and wonders? I certainly do. But I believe God's still on the throne when there's not a sign and a wonder. I believe God's still in control when there's not a miracle happening. I believe God's still in control in the valley as much as the mountain. What kind of faith do you have today? And that's the way I want to couch this. Do you have a sign and wonder faith, or do you have an abiding faith? Barry's here today so I can talk about food. He left me the other day. I talked about it anyway. Linda cooks some great meals. She's learned a long time ago I'm going to talk about her in Sunday school, so she just nothing she can do about it. Used to fuss about it, and that don't even work no more. She cooks some great meals. I have faith when I go to the table, I'm going to go away full. But you know what? Sometimes we have a sandwich. I still go away full. But you know what? I still have faith that she can cook when I need her to, or when she wants to, or when we need to. You pick up on that? I'm not making fun of food. I'm not making fun of God. He can provide a great big feast. He can also provide sustenance that may not be a great big feast. So where's your faith today? Is it an everyday faith? Or is it just a mountaintop miracle faith? That's what Jesus was asking this man from Capernaum. Are you just here for the signs and wonders? You know, he asked some of the others, are you here for the loaves and fishes? I mean, and there were some of those. The nobleman said unto him, Sir, he's trying to be respectful here, but I just almost feel his angst. His son's dying 25 miles up a dusty road. Sir, come down or my child's going to die. If you don't come with me, my son's going to die. Jesus said back to him, I want to point you to another daddy. I was going to gloss over this, but we have time. Turn over to Mark, the 9th chapter. 9 and 17. Mark 9 and 17. You know the story of what's happening here. The disciples were not able to see this healing happen, and Jesus comes along. Mark 9 and 17. And one of the multitude answered and said, Master, I have brought unto thee my son, which hath a dumb spirit. And wheresoever he taketh him, he tarrieth him. And he foameth and gnasheth with his teeth and pineth away. And I spake to thy disciples, they should cast him out, and they could not. He answered him and said, O faithless generation, how long shall I be with you? How long shall I suffer you? Bring him unto me. And they brought him unto him, and when he saw him straightway the spirit tear him, and he fell on the ground and wallowed foaming. And he asked his father, Jesus said, How long is it ago since this came upon him? And he said, Of a child. And oftentimes he cast him into the fire and into the waters to destroy him. But if thou canst do anything, have compassion on us and help us. You listening? Jesus said, If thou canst believe, all things are possible to him that believeth. Not the big things, not what we deem as little things, all things. All things are possible. And I hate to admit to you, but verse 24 is where too often I'm afraid I find myself. And straightway the father of the child cried out and said with tears, Lord, I believe. Help mine unbelief. Look, there are people in this room that have seen miracles. There's people in this room who have seen the signs and the wonders. So why do we not have full belief in an all-powerful God? Well, I think that's a deeper theological question than I can answer other than to say we're human and sometimes we just don't trust. I'm talking about me, not you. Sometimes I think, God, I know you can take care of this. And if I say I know it, why don't I just believe it and act on it? We're going to get to what this daddy did in just a minute when he believed. And straightway the father cried out and said with tears, Lord, I believe, help thou mine unbelief. When Jesus saw that the people came running together, he rebuked the foul spirit, saying to him, Thou dumb and deaf spirit, I charge thee, come out of him, and enter no more into him. And the spirit cried and rent him sore and came out of him, and he was as one dead, insomuch that many said, He is dead. But Jesus took him by the hand and lifted him up, and he arose. If you're having problems today with unbelief, if you've hit a wall in your faith where you think, I've gone as far as I can believe, let Jesus take you by the hand. He'll stand you up, and He'll strengthen your faith. It didn't say we have to have a mountain to move a mustard seed, did it? It said we have to have faith as a grain of mustard seed. And mountains will depart. They will move. I was reading something last night, and I hope I can say it. Maybe if I can't, Linda will. The Israelites said Goliath is too big a target. We can't deal with him. David said Goliath is such a big target, I can't miss him. A lot of times we find a lot of truth in a short few words. How strong is your faith today? How much do you believe God is God? This nobleman was persistent. Sir, if you don't come, my son's going to die. He didn't give up. He was respectful. He said, sir, but he's also stated his case one more time. And what did Jesus say? Go thy way, thy son liveth. Go home. Your son's alive. Those are profound, strong words. When Jesus answers you, you've got your answer. But what do you do with it? I've seen people, some of you have too, I've seen people when I agree with them, they just keep arguing with me. I'm thinking, hush, you got what you wanted. Why don't you keep talking? Be quiet before I change my mind. I've seen that more than once. You have too. Not arguing, but stating your case. And I agree with you. Yeah, I agree with you. That's what we'll do. And then they just keep on. I'm thinking, don't keep talking. This nobleman, look what he did. He didn't say, but God, you got to come. Jesus, you got to come. And the man believed the word that Jesus had spoken to him and went his way. Have you ever been given a promise of God? Through prayer, through study, through an anointed sermon that some preacher give? Have you ever been given a promise that you knew God gave you that? No doubt in your mind. What'd you do? Here's what it says. He went his way. That's not easy done. In my finite wisdom, that I sometimes obviously think is infinite, I try to help God. God has given me a promise in faith of how it's going to, maybe not how, but what's going to happen. And I know it's going to happen. I don't know when, I don't know how, but then I try to help Him. I don't go my way and leave it with God. You know what? This is a really ugly word, but that's very stupid of me. To think I can do what only God can do. Think I can fix what only God can fix. To think I can restore only what God can redeem. When God gave you that answer, wasn't it a relief? Whatever the problem, whatever the situation, whatever the need, we can go through a litany as long as lots of needs. But when God answered and you knew, I don't know about you, but that's a peace and a stress gone, that there's just great relief. Go thy way, thy son liveth. I don't know how long it took this fellow to walk 20 or 25 miles, but he had come with a purpose to bring Jesus back with him to heal this child. If you don't think it took faith, and think about this now. You're in the presence. You've been granted an audience with the Master. And you've stated your case. And he says 6 words, go thy way, thy son liveth. You don't think it took faith to turn and say, okay, I'm going back to Capernaum. Now, we glance, run right by that. Folks, that couldn't have been easy. Here's a daddy with a son dying. And he knew he was in the presence of somebody that could fix that. And he just took what he said at face value. I don't know about you, but that looked like faith to me. That's not a sign and a wonder faith, because he didn't know the child was healed. He might have thought the fever was still raging, that child was still dying. But he took God at his word in an abiding, deep faith and turned on his heel and said, all right, I'm going home. There have been times God has promised me things, and I didn't see any way. And sometimes I wrestle with it. Sometimes I keep praying. And sometimes it's almost like God, look, God don't write on my wall. God's never visited my room. But I hear from God. And I trust you do too. But when I wrestle with it and I won't accept it in faith and I won't move on, it's almost like God said, didn't I tell you? Didn't I tell you? I grew up in a household where you didn't get told twice. Me and somebody had this conversation, Keith, the other day. Daddy used to work with a fellow that he used to sort of make a joke of it and said, I never did understand him because he'd tell his son, boy, don't make me tell you again. Dad didn't quite buy into that. He told you once, and we both understood what he said, and you moved on. This fellow understood what Jesus said, and he went back to Capernaum. I don't know how to tell you this because somebody needs to hear this morning, but please be in peace. If God's give you a promise, relax. If God's told you and you know it's of God and it aligns with this, and you know it's of God, relax. It's done. May not be today, may not be tomorrow, and I don't know when it's going to be, but relax. He believed and went his way. Once God's promised you something, you can go on your way. It's as good as done in God's perfect timing. Verse 51, Jesus was just putting this man's faith to the test, I think, and he passed and went his way. He believed and he left. Fast coming to a close. Look at the confirmation of this faith, though. He went his way, and as he was now going down, his servants met him and told him, saying, Thy son liveth. Then he inquired of them the hour when he began to amend, or to get well, or to get better. And they said unto him, Yesterday at the 7th hour the fever left him. So the father knew that it was at the same hour in which Jesus said unto him, Thy son liveth. I don't know about you, and the scripture doesn't tell us this, but I feel like there was a pretty good little Thanksgiving and praise service happening in that dusty road between Cana and Capernaum. And that's the other side of this. We'll see what happened when he got home. But that's the other side of this. When we ask and God promises and he delivers, do you remember to thank him? I know you don't realize this because you've got me on some kind of pedestal. But I'm a human being and I have flaws. I've done things for people in the past and they never acknowledged it. And I'm thinking, oh boy, you wait till you need me again. And that's not what you do. You're just so forgiving and, yeah. You know, it don't take, even if you don't mean it, don't take a lot of effort to say thank you. Ask Linda. I let somebody in traffic and they don't put their hand up. I think, oh, not next time you won't. There's a fellow in town I have let him in twice, and he hadn't thrown up his hand yet. So if I let you in, wave. Faith in an almighty God is crucial. Thanksgiving for what that faith brings is critical. He went home. He met his servants. They told him that the boy started getting well the same hour of the day that Jesus told him that he was alive. But what did he do when he got home? And he himself believed, and his whole house. Let me stretch this a little, if you will. People will see your faith in action, and it'll help them believe. I'm convinced that part of our testimony is showing the world how dependent we are on him. Oh, there are people sitting in this room who can accomplish things. I know that. But when somebody tells you what a good job you've done, or do you just say, oh, you're welcome? Or do you say, that was all God, it wasn't me? Don't let your faith be misplaced. Don't let it drift back to you. You're going to disappoint yourself if you do. His whole house believed. Today, in closing, if you're between miracles, if you're between Cana and Capernaum, don't let your faith waver. If you feel deficient in your faith, let your memory work a little bit. Go back and think about the things God's done for you in the past. And there's not a person sitting sound of my voice, online or in this building, that God hadn't done something for. I don't think. Think back on what He's done for you in the past, of things that you knew it was Him. There was no one else. It wasn't yourself. It was God. Think back on that, and it's like watering that faith, and it'll begin to grow again. God's going to do something for you today. God's going to do something for you tomorrow. God's prepared eternity for us. I've got faith in that, folks. I've staked my eternity on that. As I close, faith's not just knowing that God can. It's knowing that God will. Do you believe that? I believe God can. But I also believe He will. God bless you this morning. I pray this strengthens you.